There's gotta be a better way.
There is. The single-payer system.
Legendary comedian Jerry Stiller has passed away at the age of 92 from natural causes. Now, his career started in the 1950s. He was working with his wife, Ann Mira. They were a comedy tag team duo on shows like The Ed Sullivan Show, and eventually worked his way into, I would say, his most iconic role as George Costanza's father, Frank Costanza, on Seinfeld. Now, what you may not know about Jerry Stiller is that he was also a big proponent of single-payer healthcare. So there is actually a ad that was cut back in the 90s, and I'm going to read more about this in a minute, but back in the 90s, he cut an ad with his wife on single-payer healthcare. So first I'm going to show you that and give you some of the backstory to it.
What's wrong, honey?
I'm confused about Harry and Louise.
You mean that worried couple on the insurance company's commercials?
They're so confused about health care.
And you're confused because they're confused.
They keep saying there's gotta be a better way.
There is. The single-payer system. Everyone is covered, you get full benefits, and you choose your own doctor.
Harry and Louise, there is a better way.
All right, so that was back in 1994. Now, I'm going to give you some more of the backstory to this. First, I want to give credit to Tim here on Twitter, Single Payer Tom. He's the one that dug up this clip. This is almost 30 years ago, and we're still having the same discussions today. And in some ways, we've almost gone backwards. I haven't seen any ads fighting for single payer on television with celebrities in them. Have you? So just this gives you context in terms of how long this fight has been going on publicly, not just behind the scenes, but publicly in the U.S. So some of the backstory here. This is a New York Times piece from May 3rd, 1994. I will link to this below the video if you want to read the entire article. Let me just give you a bit of the overview here. So they call it Ad Drive Opens for Canadian-Style Healthcare from Robin Toner. Supporters of a Canadian-style system of government-financed health insurance announced a new advertising campaign today, hoping to build on their success in a recent grassroots campaign on behalf of the idea in California. The new campaign pits the comedy team of Jerry Stiller and Ann Mira against the Health Industry Association of America's Harry and Louise, two aging yuppies fretting about the future of healthcare in a series of television advertisements. So this was an ad in response to an ad from the insurance industry, the health insurance industry, back during that time. Appropriating the tagline of the insurance industry's spots, Ms. Mira declares in one commercial, quote, Harry and Louise, there is a better way. The advertising campaign is small compared with the industry's just 1 million, only a fourth of which has been raised, as against the more than 10 million spent by the Insurance Association. So even back then, of course, the insurance industry was heavily trying to stop the idea of a single-payer healthcare system. Just think how much money the insurance industry has put into maintaining the status quo. And think about how much more money they have made by maintaining the status quo. So spending $10 million back in 1994 is nothing compared to the profits they have been able to make by keeping this existing system. But the advocates of a Canadian-style system in which the government pays nearly all medical bills have already demonstrated substantial support at the grassroots. Last week, a coalition of consumer, labor, and doctors groups in California submitted more than 1 million signatures to put a measure on the ballot this fall that would create a government-financed healthcare system paid for by taxes. Officials must still verify the signatures before the measure goes on the state ballot, but organizers said the number was well above the threshold required. Obviously, California does not have a single-payer system, so I can imagine this didn't go through. Around the country, advocates of a Canadian-style system hope the California experience helps them in their struggle to demonstrate the political viability for their plan. They are convinced that their principal problem is not the substantive merits of a national health insurance system, but the perception in the White House and on Capitol Hill, fed by the industry groups, that is simply too radical for the American people. Yeah. So it's the same problem today. The issue isn't the merits of a single-payer system, because you just look around the world. Look at Canada. Just look north of your border. We have a single-payer system. We've had it since the 60s. It's great. Now, the real issue here, as they point out, is not even just the perception. Because, well, back then, yes, the perception. But nowadays, polling on Medicare for All is incredibly popular. And think of how much DC does, how much is done in national politics, how much gets passed that most Americans don't agree with. Did most Americans agree to give the wealthiest and massive corporations a massive tax break under Trump? Of course not. But that went through. Yeah, when we discuss Medicare for All, the media always focuses on, well, does it have majority support yet? I mean, the American people just aren't there yet. Meanwhile, most polling shows they are there. But even regardless of that, even if they weren't there, Washington, D.C. does so much that most Americans don't agree with ever. Because most of what Washington politics is about helping the wealthiest and corporations, maintaining the status quo. So while perception, in some ways, yes, it's still important, of course. It's still good to have the American people on board with the idea of a single-payer system. The real fight is that the health insurance industry has a hold on politics, has a hold on the politicians that are representing you in Washington. But anyways, I'm getting too far from the point here. That Jerry Stiller was not even just an awesome and hilarious comedian. And by the way, a few days ago on Twitter, I had actually tweeted about this, about how I thought the parents on Seinfeld were underappreciated in their performances and the writing, because some of my favorite Seinfeld episodes are with Frank and Estelle Costanza and them fighting. I still watch Seinfeld to this day, and I still laugh at those scenes because Jerry Stiller and Estelle, I forget her real name, but it's Estelle something, and Estelle, so talented in their roles there. But yeah, not only was Jerry Stiller an incredible comedian, but also an incredible person.